This is Leaders Who Scale, and I'm Jeff Siegel. I've worked with thousands of companies over the years, and I'm fascinated by seeing how many of them grow and scale. Join me as we learn from the leaders of growing companies and share that knowledge. Leaders Who Scale is sponsored by Siegel Solutions, providing world-class accounting, advisory, and QuickBooks and Acumatica Cloud ERP services. Today's guest is a passionate leader. He has over 20 years in the painting industry, and he's building a company on a 21st century business model that focuses on employees, customers, and community. He's gone from a one-man operation in 2016 to 9 full-time employees. He's the founder of Todd A. Hess Painting and Hess Supply Co., which is in York, Pennsylvania. I want to welcome Todd Hess. Welcome, Todd.
Hello, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being here. I'd love to hear about your journey. I know you've gone from 1 to 9 in 6 years or so.
We're in our 6th year this year. Yes, sir.
Yep. Yeah, and the middle we had obviously had the pandemic, so it must have been a challenge. So, one of the questions I'd love to hear is our answer to is, what is the most challenging aspect of scaling your company?
I'd like to give 5 of, I think, the biggest challenges. I think culture is one, keeping a great culture. I think people is one. I think standard operating procedures is a big challenge for scaling. Systems, making sure systems are in place, and then the processes that hold those systems in place. I think those 5 things for me have been the biggest challenges the whole 6 years, even at the beginning as being a one-man operation to now being a 9-man operation.
Are there any misconceptions about, starting a company that people may think, as you're going through this journey?
I think that a lot of, especially in the trades, I think a lot of people work at companies that, probably don't appreciate them much. And, they see pricing from that company and they think that it's more of just, hey, I can kind of just go out, I find the first job and I kind of goes to the next job. And they don't really take into consideration the business part and kind of like the 5 things I just mentioned. One of them just being, systems and processes and structures of where they want the business to go. And I mean, a big one too, we didn't mention it because we did it at the beginning and we revisited it, but just having a vision of where you want your company to go.
Yeah. I mean, that to me is important for everyone I've talked to in the past, and even myself, having that goalpost, like you just mentioned, that
Sure.
vision. There's that quote that I've heard, and I may have even mentioned it on prior podcasts. You can't get there from here, but you can get here from there. So just kind of knowing where you're headed, that helps us get there. And it sounds like you had one from the start.
Well, we did have a vision from the start. That's something we're doing just now, is we're re-looking at that vision. I think that's something that you come back to, because the crew members that are around you, the men and women that make your company run and operate, they have to be actively involved in that vision. They need to kind of know and have transparency on where you're going and what you're doing. So it's one of those things that you don't just make it at the beginning and then you kind of, put it away in a book somewhere and tab it somewhere, or you have it on your website and it never changes. It's something that, I think is constantly changing. You should at least revisit it once a year, I would imagine. That's what we're going to be trying to do from here on out.
So how do you, how do you do that with, I guess it implies some kind of culture and keeping them all on the same page. How are you going about doing that, as you're growing your company?
Well, I think the thing that kind of stands off from the vision is kind of, one of the 5 things that I did mention was standard operating procedures. First thing is for crew members, just to know that when they go out to do a project, one of the biggest things we want is we want the same feel for the customer and we want the same outcome for the customer. So if you can get a group of people together that are inside your company and everyone just has an understanding that that's our goal, and it's not, one person does something a certain way and it's just how they're going to do it. No, we have meetings every Monday that, they're with every single person in the company. And we talk about standard operating procedures every single week. And what can we do to make them better? And I think just doing that part from the field aspect, meaning people that work with the customers and aren't in the office, once those people have a buy-in on that and know they're working together as a team, people, lots of times you'll see people will let go of certain things that they did in the past, that they can see that it's more efficient or better to do together as a group, and to keep it standard for, right from the painter to the foreman. So everybody has a good understanding of what's going on, and the customer has the same outcome and experience during a project.
No, that sounds great. I mean, you mentioned meetings on Mondays, so that's the whole team. So that I assume would keep everybody on the same page, keep that culture. Do issues pop up? You go through things like that, or
yes, issues do pop up. Yeah, issues do pop up. We do go through things. Now, this is one of them things where, you mentioned I mentioned and you mentioned back that everybody's involved. Now, how that looks in the future, we don't know, because as you scale up, you have, 9 people is easy to get into a room. What happens when it becomes 18 people, or what happens when it becomes 25 people? And these are the kind of incremental questions that you continue to ask yourself as you scale. You have to have adaptability. I mean, that would be something else that I would throw in there for anybody that's going into starting their business or has plateaued. In my industry, people plateau a lot of times at 3, 4, maybe 5 people, and they can't get past that plateau because they're too bogged down by what they've done in the past, and they're not open to being adaptable to something moving them forward.
So I'm curious. So what percentage of the time would you feel that you're working on strategy and kind of, working on the business, and as opposed to, the percentage that you'd spend pretty much working in the business, whether it's, picking up a paintbrush or looking at, a quoting a job or any of those things? I'm curious how you view that and what you.
That's a great question, Jeff, because that's one that I think would help a lot of people, again, in our industry, understand. It took me about 5 years to get out of the field. That was at a point in which I still step back in the field every once in a while to help out. But it has just been in the last, I'd say 6 months, that 6 to 9 months, that I've gotten a good core group of individuals that, we're all on the same page. We all know where the company's going. And when that happens, you're able to work on the other parts of the company. But to answer your question on working on the business, I'd say I only spend about 20% of my time working on the business right now, because I'm still actively involved in the operational side. So that's the scheduling, ordering materials, talking to customers to get themselves set up with color selection and stuff like that. And then the sales side. So those are two areas that I'm going to be looking forward to putting into my vision, of letting those areas go and trying to figure out how we can grow a little bit more to maybe possibly have one of the crew members inside the company take one of those positions, and work on that as something I can let go of as an owner.
Have you already kind of built out that long-term vision as far as the org chart and where you want to see this company go as far as employees or team members?
Yes. We that's one thing I did at the beginning as well. I set a structure of the company up. My very first structure, it still hangs, and it is a structure for a 49 painter company. It has, the president, the VP positions inside the company, VP of operations, VP of sales, and it works down all those branches. And, you kind of put your name where you're working at the time, and then you fill them other sections as the company grows.
I'm curious, just taking me back a little further.
Sure.
When I was looking at your bio or your website, it looked like you'd worked for a company for a number of years, all the way up through general manager, and lost that job for whatever reason. I'm curious, and it also said you were promised ownership, I think. to what extent has that driven you with this company here and how you're growing it and you just your
Well,
own
yeah,
development?
I think that question's we don't need to steer away from it. You know, I worked for a prominent painting company in York, Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
Um, I was very good friends, along with great coworker with the owner. We had discussed ownership, and it's something that just didn't work out. It actually worked out in my favor by being left go, because there's a lot that comes with buying a company that, you know, when you just start out from scratch, you're able to kind of build your own structure, and it's a little bit cleaner beginning. I actually talked to that owner of that company still, and we have lunch, and there's no hurt feelings over that. Things sometimes work out in your favor. But the one thing I would say is it drove me it drove me in a way in which I understood that, you know, I was out of the field inside of that company for 4 or 5 years. So I think it really tested me as an individual of, hey, are you willing to put whites back on, you know, go out and, you know, old 2001 F-250 van and, you know, sell in the evening and work all day and, you know, get jobs that you might have to work all night. I had a 2-month project that I did basically by myself. It was all night work. And, you know, that's where my wife, Alex, she's an intricate part of the company now, but
Mhm.
she was an intricate part of just supporting me and, you know, keeping that drive alive, you know, to do
Yeah.
what you want to do with your vision.
Yeah, you mentioned your wife supporting you, so I imagine she's part of your management team too, right? She works in the company with you, or
Yes, my wife is VP of Marketing and Communications.
okay.
She also does office management pieces of the company. That's something too that in our long-term vision is looking
Mhm.
to see how to get her out of an office management position, because we do think that the future, at least for our company, is going to be a lot of content and a lot of more on the marketing side, driving different parts
Yeah.
of the industry other than just the painting part.
Do you actually meet is there any other members of your team and do you meet as far as the working on the business side? Because it sounds like the Monday meetings are like, here's what's going on this week, projects, who's here, who's not, issues. But how about from a just kind of that over the working on the strategy of the business? Do you
That
have separate meetings for that? Do you have other team members that are participate?
No, we do not currently have other team members other than we do have, and we do this because we found it more efficient for us. We have a website designer that is a marketing strategist. So he's come up with our marketing strategy. We have a content creator that we work closely with, and we have a video editor that we work closely with. Other than that, it is currently just me and my wife. We do have inter-office meetings to strategize on where the company's moving. A lot of this, keeping it to minimum amount of people inside the office, I think that's another thing that some companies that are our size, they have more than 2 people in their offices. You know, we know companies that might have 10 or 12 people, they got 3 or 4 people in the office. We're trying to keep our overhead down,
Mhm.
because a lot of that monetary part of keeping it down, we can then increase wages. We can give better benefits to our employees. I mean, it's all part of where you want your company to go and kind of figuring your way out. We're not at that point yet, but we hope to be bringing at least one more person in. Like I said, probably into an office manager's type position, and that would probably be within the next 12 to 18 months or so.
Yeah. Is most of the work you do, is it commercial, residential, both a mixture? We didn't really talk much about the business itself. Is it
Yeah.
company?
Yeah, we're about a 50-50 mix. We do about 50% commercial, 50% residential. It sometimes skews a little bit more towards the residential side during the summer months, due to the fact that we are a company that does a lot of older wood structures, wood houses in our area. So we're an older area. We're, you know, only about 2 hours outside of Philadelphia. So some of our buildings are, you know, mid 1800s
Wow.
and,
Okay.
you know, early 19th century. So that's kind of a reasoning why we continue, I think, to grow is, you know, when you do good work in a field that there's very few companies that compete against you, after 6 years, we have lots of those type of projects that we didn't really have it, 2, 3 years out. So we're seeing growth in that part.
Interesting. And we talked earlier about you creating this supply company. So that's new, right? So let's
Yes.
talk about that.
Yes.
I'm curious, are you looking to create these multiple streams of revenue? I'm curious what the long-term, lookout for that is. And actually, this is another part of this question. How do you see what's happening in the economy affecting the business with inflation and, just everything that's happening in today's world?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a great question, Jeff. Well, the Supply Co. That was a dream of mine about 4 or 5 years ago. It was 2 years into having the painting company that I realized that, a lot of the industry, it has been separated out from the painter. If you go and you read, I have a large collection of painting manuals from 100 years ago, where the painter did everything. They literally went out, they bought the bases, they mixed the paint, they did everything. And so as the Industrial Revolution went along, everything got separated out for efficiency purposes. But if a painting contractor can look at it and they're able to set up stuff, a Supply Co was the only portion of vertical integration that I could do. So what I did was by making that Supply Co, I have wholesalers. I don't have to go to a paint store to buy a roller cover. I buy that roller cover cheaper from a wholesaler. We can supply ourselves with our own paint from a manufacturer, and that paint cost is lowered. All that right now, though, is looks like we have set ourselves up pretty good for the current economical conditions, because we're not being as affected by inflation, because we've lowered all of our costs on the sundries and the supplies and the material side. So I think that's a great lesson for all business owners. I don't think sticking inside of just your industry and not looking for other opportunities for other revenue streams is a good idea. I think you should always be looking for other opportunities. Anything that can alleviate pressure from just one business having to supply all the revenue all the time. Because it's no different than if you have to diversify your stock portfolio. You want to diversify your business a little bit and make sure that you can have different streams of revenue.
But it sounds like with that supply company, because you're going to have, like you mentioned, other painters coming in and buying things.
Sure.
Is there a large, from a cash flow perspective, as an accountant, I always wonder, you have to lay out money for inventory and make sure you've got obviously supply, or you can get it quickly. I mean, that sounds like a challenge on its own, including running a painting company. So yeah. So
what's nice about it, Jeff, is we are seeing a lot of me and my wife's time, is being adjusted, and we know the hard work is for probably a 3 to 6 month period of time before it really gets its feet underneath it. But what's nice about it is our painting company is large enough that all these things that the Supply Co storefront has, they're all things we would have bought in bulk anyhow.
Okay.
So all we did was take our supply and our materials, and we moved them to a storefront, and we're able to offer better pricing to some of our contractor friends that they would have been able to get from somewhere else. So I think it's also a nice little niche of being part of the community. You're bringing back a local paint store when very few of them exist. And you're also able to help out your fellow contractors, because I'm a firm believer that there's enough work, at least in my trade, that no one needs to really get competitive when it comes to, worrying about if you come into my store to buy supplies from me that you're, supplying the competitor with revenue. I think there's enough work out here for all of us.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, do you have to invest in the mixers and all that stuff for the supply store? Or is it?
Yeah, we did have to get a shaker in, but the McCormick Paints company that is graciously giving us our ability to sell McCormick Paints, they are going to supply us with a tinning machine. So,
wow.
I mean, it's a great it's a great partnership, and we're glad to have them.
How is the cost of like with inflation? I mean, at one time I heard there was like a tin shortage. I'm not sure if there still is. Does that affect the cost of paint and the cans and things like that? I mean, is that affecting your industry?
Well, I think it is affecting our industry because most companies have gone to a plastic can now. There's very few. I think that's going to be mainly in the industrial products that have solvents in them that you can't store in a plastic container. But yes, we have seen a change from a metal can to a plastic can, and there is some faults in that too, and I think they'll get better as they continue to produce them, because I don't think there's any time that they're going to be going back to full metal cans.
Yeah. You mentioned when you first we started talking, you mentioned culture, people, SOP, systems, process. What kind of systems? I'm a big systems person. So what kind of systems do you have in place? What do you use for an accounting system? Being an accountant, I always ask.
We use QuickBooks Online right now.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, good.
Yep.
That gets a check.
We use QuickBooks Online, and that's integrated into our estimating system, which is called PEP Cloud, PEP Cloud. And what's nice about that is we just started using the Zapper program that kind of attaches our PEP Cloud to a spreadsheet to gather all of our information. But it also, PEP Cloud has a integrated part that you basically push a button and all your customers' information gets uploaded into QuickBooks. So that part of our company is those systems are working great. I think the biggest struggle we're having right now is because we work with crew members that are on different jobs all the time that are changing, is more of refining a system to get the information that they have out in the field back into the systems for job costing and for invoicing on. We do time and material projects. So you can imagine you're tracking time, you're tracking materials, you're buying materials from different places, and that can kind of slow down the process of invoicing. And you don't want to have it too far out after the end of a job that you've invoiced a customer. So yeah, that's what we're right now. That's one of our biggest.
I have a solution for you. So offline.
There you go.
Ties into QuickBooks Online. You can actually do a proposal, electronically get them to sign it. Your people can clock their time. Actually, I'll throw it out there right now. It's called Knowify.
Knowify.
Knowify, for anyone who's listening. It's for contractors, anyone in the trades. You can create a whole proposal. It could be detailed or more in summary.
Yep.
Ties into QuickBooks. So all your costing is done. You could even do AIA billing, which I'm not sure you ever have to do with any of your clients, but for bigger commercial companies, they want an AIA billing, which is budget, cost a date, current invoice.
So this is a great question for you, Jeff, because you're more on this side of it.
Yeah.
So do you feel like we may be going through a period of time too that owners might be being bogged down by which app is the app for them? Which software is the software for them? Because I kind of feel that as
definitely you're right on point, because there's so much with the evolution of especially QuickBooks Online. We kind of sell a lot of it, and we work with a lot of clients in our outsourced accounting and consulting side.
Sure.
The API they have allows all these third parties to create programs to integrate with QuickBooks. So you mentioned Zapier, which is an intermediary that'll.
Yep.
So there's a lot of stuff even with QuickBooks, Zapier, and third-party software, which works great as well. So we're constantly. It's a great question. We're constantly asked by our own clients, like, "Hey, is there a program that does this?" And basically what happens is there could be 10 of them. And we're like, okay, let's figure out what's the most important things you need. And because every one of them, even though there may be 10 of the same type of program, they specialize in different pieces of it. And someone may want.
Is that something that you help your clients out with too?
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Kind of figuring out it, because I think if that's what you're helping clients with, I can tell you that's a struggle for me as well. I mean, it's like you're almost inundated by so much information, and you almost get paralyzed by like,
Yeah. Yeah.
because everybody's had that experience as a business owner. You get this software, you're like, man, this is going to be the greatest thing. And what you're doing is you're spending more time doing workarounds.
Right.
It's not really tailored for you.
You have a separate CRM and you're putting a customer name over here, but then you got to enter it in QuickBooks when you go to bill them.
Yep.
Now it's redundant.
Yep.
A proposal that now you want to put an estimate or something in QuickBooks, that's redundant. So we're constantly trying to figure out the best, because every program does do something better than, different. They may focus more on a proposal, but it also does job costing. Something may be a lot more job costing. It doesn't do any proposal side of it. So it's kind of trying to figure out what works. And every client is a little different about what they want. Yeah. So,
sure.
But yeah, because you mentioned systems, I was just curious on that. So, and I've never seen the Pep Cloud software, so I'm curious what that looks like, because I'm always trying to learn from my own clients, what's out there.
So Pep Cloud, it does a lot of what you just said about the other. What was the name of the other one? I'm sorry.
Notified.
Okay. It does a lot of the similar things. It allows you to keep a calendar. It allows you to email your work orders to your foreman. It allows you to put a proposal together that's completely interactive too. A customer can click off the areas they don't want to paint. They can click in and out the kind
that's wonderful.
Yeah, figure out what pricing is. I think it's one of the best ones that we've found. Now, it's also one of those things. I would encourage all business owners too, is when you buy a piece of software. I've had Pep Cloud for probably 2-3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've been so busy doing other things. I just now in the last 3 months really sat down and looked at what it could do for us. Oh. Now we're realizing that we can use it for other things. So I would encourage all business owners too to like really take the time to learn about the software that you bring on board, because it might do something that you need it to do, and you're really just, again, not willing to adapt. You're using it for the one thing that you kind of like really wanted it for, but it'll have little features in it that you're like, oh man, I can implement these and it'll make my life so much easier. So it's one of them things.
No, that's good. I have a client now that has 2 different systems, and they're like, someone told me we could do all this in QuickBooks. And I looked at it and said, yeah, you could. So we're like getting rid of the other one, or slowly getting rid of the other one. But anyway, I don't want to go down this path. I could talk all day about.
Hey, Jeff, I just want to make sure that I think when we talk about systems, if you have a knowledge of it, more knowledge than I do, I think it's going to help the listeners out to get a little bit of that too as well.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's a good. I don't plug that stuff, but we do a lot of it because, right, like you mentioned, there's so many apps out there. Everything's web based now, and they all do something that you think you need, and you're paralyzed.
Exactly. You're exactly correct. You're paralyzed, and guess what? Once you're paralyzed on it, you kind of just let it go. And you start working on other things, but nothing will work unless you get that part. You're not going to get that redundant. I think redundancy, like you said, is probably one of the things that drive office managers and business owners and high-level management drives us crazy, because you don't want to be copying and pasting information and writing down information on a notepad to retype it into another piece of software. So I'm always ears for other people's input on that, because I know that's a part in the company that I'm going to always be looking to improve.
Yeah, you want efficiency, you want reporting, you want to be able, like a dashboard to manage and run your business and grow. And all of these pieces have to work together to get that information, job costing, all that stuff. So
perfect.
So I'm just curious about just how you just your own professional development. You're a leader, you're growing a company, you've been a painter all these years. What do you rely on for your own knowledge today? Because it sounds like what you've been doing is great. You've culture, people, systems, SOPs, you've got your org chart filled out, even though your name may be in a bunch of boxes, but you know where you want to go. I'm just curious where all that came from.
To be honest, the gentleman that I lost my job to, that ended up letting me go, I started my knowledge from him. A lot of it has to do with a small consulting firm that he was part of called ProSalt. And then it went on to, he had got me involved in Sandler. And we have a great Sandler group here in York. And from there, I started reading other books and self-improvement books and things like that. I'm constantly in the mode of that, as hard as you work on your business, I hope that you're working that hard on yourself, because it's a direct reflecting of how well I think your business ends up doing. I don't think anybody out here is that's just driven on the business side and not driven on the self-improvement side. I'm not sure if success looks the same for that person as it does for the person that's working on themselves as well. Some of the books that I would recommend for people would be Beyond the E-Myth by Michael Gerber. I would recommend Start with Why and Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. I think Jocko Willink has 2 books, Discipline Equals Freedom, and he has one other in, I think Leadership Strategy and Tactics is another great one by Jocko Willink. I think it's like anything. You have to constantly be looking for, how can I improve myself? And that kind of reflects into how you can improve your organization. I think what I've come to learn is just that it comes really back to people. I think people are the biggest thing that sometimes people don't realize that that's really the driver of the company.
Yeah, that is true. And people, and setting that kind of that tone, and from the leader, culture,
Sure.
it just kind of, our biggest resource in almost every business is our people. Actually, it probably is the biggest resource.
It is. I believe it is the biggest resource. Yep. I mean, like, I'll give an example of one little tiny thing inside my company that I think has resonated with people that have stayed on board.
Yeah.
I don't tolerate yelling and screaming from no one. Like, just don't yell and scream. We don't need that. We don't need it. We can be civilized human beings. We can talk respectfully. We can all understand that mistakes happen. We can look at that mistake and dissect it and say, how can it not happen again? Right. And I think that the people that have stayed on board, they've more than once mentioned, oh man, I'm having a bad day. I like when I call you when something's happened, because you're just kind of like, well, okay, that happened. Good. So we're at this point. What can we do to fix it? And we'll talk through the possible solutions for it. And when I end that conversation, I'm more like, so, kind of, what's your plan of action? And they take lead. It's right what they're going to do. I don't give them the answer. I want to know, they called me because most of the time it's stress, it's fear, it's anxiety because something happened. My job as a leader is not to increase that stress, fear, and anxiety. My job is to relieve it and say, hey, let's talk through this. And I think that's one of the biggest things that has changed my company, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. I like that you just mentioned that you're not giving them the answer either. It's like, okay, what's your next course of action? Yeah, I think, years ago, a leader was like, here's what you need to do, do as I say type of thing. But, over the years, successful leaders are the ones that seem to work with their team and get them to take the initiative and not give them the answers, and I think it builds a stronger team too. Obviously.
Well, yeah,
I'm not going to run to you for every single problem. Yeah.
And you're building leaders.
Yeah.
See, that's the ticket. I don't want to build somebody that's just doing what I want them to do, because guess what? Todd can't be everywhere. I have to build leaders so that we can gain knowledge back and forth. And when a problem arises, they might even say in their head, hey, I already talked about this one 2 years ago with Todd. I know exactly what I'm going to do. Or I can handle this. There's no reason to call Todd, because he trusts me to make the best decision possible. That's what I want. That's what I want my people. I want them to know that mistakes are going to happen. Do what you think is right, unless you feel like it needs to be a discussion. Yeah. Okay, well, then let's have that discussion.
I do love that. Because, we should be hiring people that are smarter than us, right? I mean,
right.
because if they're not, then we've capped out our business essentially with our own knowledge, right?
No,
Well,
no, 100%, Jeff, 100%. We should all be searching for people more intelligent than us
yeah,
and better at what they do than us.
right.
Like I tell people lots of times, I'm probably a good painter.
Mhm.
Okay. But I'm a great salesman. I know that just happens to be one thing that I'm really good at.
Right.
And I have painters that are better painters than me. And I have no problem saying that because they're really great craftsmen and they deserve that respect from me. And so if I was just out here trying to be the best painter and the owner of the company that, then who am I going to attract? How is the company going to grow?
Yeah.
No one wants to be around. I don't think anybody wants to be around that person.
Yeah, I don't think so either. They won't last long.
No,
Yeah.
no.
No, this is all great stuff. What excites you about the future, just in general, whether it's the business or where you're headed, or
I'm excited about the future because this will probably be a very rough understanding of what my vision is. But I'm with the supply co being put into place. I'm hoping to be able to help more contractors. I'm hoping that, and I'm going to use the R word a little bit here. I do see that we will probably see somewhat of a correction and a recession. Mm-hmm. Whenever that happens, I don't know when that's going to happen. My advice to everybody is this, that in both of my companies, we are paying off everything we can pay off. Mm-hmm. We are increasing wages. Just yesterday, we increased wages 5% across the board for all of our employees as a standard of living wage increase. Awesome. And we are preparing ourselves for tighter times, meaning that pricing might get more competitive with other people. So that's another thing that diversifying helps alleviate pressure against the painting company. So I see in the future is going to be good for us. We're putting blocks in place so that if we do have to get a little bit more competitive, we're able to do that and still have the same people on board that we have now.
That's awesome. And you're thinking about it and you're doing something about it. I think you're being proactive, which is great. I don't think a lot of successful leaders probably do what you're doing, and a lot of the kind of non-successful ones are just kind of very just reactive and they could find themselves cash flow problems, employee problems, and putting out fires. So this is
and they could find themselves doing that either very soon or digging themselves even a bigger hole, because I don't think anybody knows when the correction's coming.
Yeah, we don't.
I mean, it could be the third quarter of this year. It could be the beginning of 2024. Right. But I do know that when the faucet's been on as much as it's been on, meaning the money has been as readily available it has been for probably the last decade, probably longer, because this is the end result. Is at some point the money can't continue to be this easy. So as things tighten up a little bit, businesses and startups that had easy time getting a loan or getting a line of credit, I'd encourage, if you're in business now and you don't have a line of credit, that might be something you want to put into place as soon as possible. Absolutely. That might save you from going under if tough times come and you need to just get a loan for a little bit of money, and you have that line there automatically.
Right. You should get one when you don't need it. Right. Have it in place. So because then when you need it, it's hard to get. Obviously. So enough about business scaling. Just curious. Tell me about yourself. Where you're from, where you went to school. I'm just curious about your background, how you got here.
Yeah, I am an individual that's from York County my whole life. I did spend 3 years living upstate New York, where my wife is from. So I lived in a little tiny town called Saginaw, about 2 miles from where I currently live in Mount Wolf. And I have 2 sons. I have a beautiful wife. She helps me in the business. And we enjoy just kind of spending family time together. We go to the Outer Banks every year. Not much outside, to be honest with you, not much outside of my reading for self-improvement is very many hobbies. I mean, me and my wife both work out. We both stay healthy. We have a little Frenchie and another older dog that has been around since the kids were just a little 2-3-year-old. And I do have one son though that is graduating this year, so that's an exciting. Yeah, thank you. That's an exciting thing for us. He is going to stay local though, and I think I had a little bit of a conversation with him too about, planning for the future. And I think he's made a great choice of kind of getting some of his general education out of the way here at a local college and then finding a way later on. But other than that, Jeff, me and my wife, due to the fact that we work in the business together, it's kind of, we as a family kind of live it and breathe it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And I'm sure you have to create some boundaries every once in a while, right? This is family, right? So yeah.
Yep.
No, so this has been great. I mean, I feel like I could talk to you for another hour. So, but I'm going to keep it to a respectable time. And I love that conversation. I would love to reconnect, a year down the road, kind of see, kind of like go back and see what you've done in a year, because it sounds like you're growing, and we'll see what happens with the R word, but who knows? Yeah. Sounds like the supply company hopefully takes off. That sounds great. And
Jeff, I would love to get together again a year from now. I think that another reconnection would make it like, hey, what have you done over the year? Right. It's one of them things that as an owner, you shouldn't be afraid to say, hey, I'm more than welcome you to reach out to me in a year, because that's going to motivate me to make sure this year is better than the last and preparing to have a better year after that year. So that would be great.
That's good. I'm going to hold you accountable just by saying that. I'm going to, I want to, it sounds, you're doing great. It sounds awesome, from starting from 1 to 9 and you're adding more. This is awesome. The supply company, it's all good. So people can find you. I found you on LinkedIn. Sure. So Todd A. Hess Painting Co. right on LinkedIn.
Yep.
Your company website, if you want to throw that out, I think it's
same thing. Todd A. Hess Painting Co.com, and we also have HessSupplyCo.com. Todd A. Hess Painting Co. is on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We're on all the social medias. And I would encourage everybody, business owner, person that's doing a project, even if you're just reaching out for some help and you're struggling with something small and you're like, hey, this guy was on this podcast, he might be out, reach out. I'll have an answer for you. I'll get back to you. I will.
No, that's awesome. It's been great. I want to thank you again. I can't wait to talk to you in a year or so. Hopefully I'll talk to you before then. I want to thank everyone who's listening. If you like it, share it, encourage other people to listen to it. So again, Todd, thanks. And
Jeff, thanks for having me on. This has been great. And we'll reconnect a year from now. Everybody, like Jeff said, please comment and share this.
Absolutely. So, and this has been another episode of Leaders Who Scale. And that wraps up another episode. Thank you for joining. For show notes and other episodes, visit us at leaderswhoscale.com. Leaders Who Scale is sponsored by Siegel Solutions, providing world-class services and cutting-edge tools that help businesses grow and succeed.